up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to talk about financial literacy, investing, saving, and so much more from the perspective of a teenager. Now, I am not a teenager. I am 27 years old, but 10 years ago, I was a senior in high school, and whenever I was in high school, I spent a ton of time learning about money, business, investing, and trying to become as financially literate as possible. And I believe that the steps that I took 10 years ago in high school really paved the way to help me become the investor and business person that I am today. So in this video, I want to break down some of the steps that you can take, or your children can take, or your cousins or your friends can take if you are somebody that is a teenager and you want to set yourself up for success in the future. So let's get started. I think that the perspective of money in teenagers is really interesting because of the fact that we feel as though in order to be educated, in order to be successful, you have to have good grades in high school, and thus you'll go to a good college, and thus you'll graduate and get a good job. But in my opinion, I think that that's really quite far from the truth. Now, don't get me wrong, doing well in school can be important depending on what your goals are, but it is absolutely not the end-all, be-all determining factor of success. I would argue that more often than not, learning how to be financially literate, learning about investing, learning about managing your money, learning about different aspects of finance, like potentially starting a business, securing a loan, interest rates, and so much more. I believe that these things are almost more important than getting good grades. Take me, for example. I am somebody that really struggled in school. I graduated high school in 2012 and I had like a 2.5 GPA. Then after high school, I went on to community college, where I ultimately ended up dropping out, and my GPA at community college wasn't much better than it was in high school. Now, whenever I was in school, I didn't get bad grades because I was stupid or because I wasn't trying. I got bad grades because it simply was a topic that did not interest me. And instead of spending my free time studying or trying to learn the topics I was learning in school, I instead would learn about business, investing, and financial literacy. Now, I'm fortunate because of the fact that I grew up in a household that really embraced the fact that I was not interested in school. And my dad was very supportive of the idea of me pivoting my focus from my grades and from school and focusing on the things that I was passionate and interested in. And it just so happened that those things were business, finance, and learning about investing. And because of this, my grades always struggled, but in the background, I was learning a ton about some really important things that would help me later on in life. And I am a huge believer that if it wasn't for the things I was doing back in high school with finances, with investing, with savings, there is no way that I would be here sitting in front of you today. So I am a firm believer that the actions I took 10 years ago in school really did pave the way for where I am currently in 2021. Now with that, let's dig into the very first thing that I recommend that all teenagers should do, and that should be getting a part-time job. Now, I think that getting a job is incredibly important for a number of reasons. Number one is it gives you some financial freedom. There were a lot of things that I bought in high school that I was only able to buy because of the fact that I had my own job and I was making my own money. It gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do within reason, and it allowed for me a lot of independence from my parents when it came to deciding what I wanted to do with my money. I could save, I could invest, I could buy a new computer. I could really do as much as I wanted to with the permission of my parents, with the money that I was making with my part-time job. For me, I did a ton of different part-time jobs in high school. I worked as a gymnastics coach, I was a nanny, I did side gigs, I was kind of all over the place. But I always found jobs that paid pretty well, and as a result, I had a lot of money for somebody who was 16, 17, or 18 years old. This allowed me the money to open my first investment account. It allowed for me to buy the computer that up until recently I used to edit all of my YouTube videos. It really gave me the flexibility and the independence to not only save, but invest, and also look at business ventures that I could pursue as a 16 or 17-year-old high school student. I believe that getting a part-time job is great for a number of reasons, and I would encourage any teenager to do this. But the biggest advantage of having a part-time job as a high school student is by simply having the flexibility of doing what you want with your money that you earn. And we will go in what I think you should do with that money a bit later on in this video. The second thing that you should do is to get a credit card as soon as possible and use that credit card responsibly. And whenever I say that you need to use it responsibly, I mean don't spend more than you can afford on that credit card. Instead, use it for things like gas and food and pay it off immediately. This is incredibly important because it will help you build your credit as early as you possibly can. Now, this is something that I've talked about on this channel before because of the fact that, once again, it's something I have personal experience with. You see, I got a credit card the moment that I was able to, and as a result, I was ultimately able to be approved for a $300,000 loan in my very early 20s. That would not have been possible if it wasn't for the fact that I had a nearly 800 credit score at an incredibly young age. Credit score is incredibly important. I cannot overstate this enough. And as somebody who has struggled with credit over the last couple of years because of the loss of my business in 2018, I know firsthand the benefits of having good credit from whenever I had an 800 credit score, and I also know the struggles that can come along with having bad credit as somebody who up until recently had a mid 600 credit score. Every single thing in life when it comes to finances, investing, and buying assets is easier if you have a good credit score. And it is so incredibly important to start building that as early as you absolutely can. If you can get a starter credit card at the age of like 18 years old, you can then go on and get a really high-end points rewarding credit card when you're in your early 20s. And if you can get in the habit of using credit responsibly, then you really have so much opportunity available to you because of the valuable resource that a good credit score is. Now, there are a number of good credit cards that you can check out if you're somebody who's wanting to get your very first credit card. According to NerdWallet, Citi Secured MasterCard, Capital One Platinum Credit Card, Pedal 2 Visa credit card, and Secured MasterCard from Capital One are all really good ones to start with. Typically, large banks like Chase Bank, for example, will have some sort of entry-level credit card that you can get with a checking account. That's what I did, and I was ultimately able to spend that off into a legitimate high-point earning credit card later on down the road. Number 3 is open an investment account. This is so incredibly important, and ultimately this is how I was able to buy a franchise business at such a young age, is because of the fact that I started investing as early as I possibly could. And by the time I graduated high school and was entering college, I had about $100,000 in my investment account because of a really good stock play that I made when I was a junior and senior in high school through the American Airlines stock. Now, what happened to me in American Airlines is partially luck and just partially good timing. So don't expect to necessarily walk away from your senior year in high school by having 6 figures in your investment account. But that fact aside, I do think it's incredibly important to start investing in the stock market as early as possible and to start understanding the importance of consistent investing time and time again as early as you can possibly do it. The fact is, the earlier you can invest, the better, and the more you can start consistently stocking away some of your income, the better you will be financially later on down the road. Now, whenever it comes what type of investment account to choose from, it really is up to you and what platforms you feel comfortable with. Nowadays, things like Webull and Robinhood, despite the fact that it's been in a bit of controversy lately, but these two platforms are really popular for new investors. But if you want to go with a more long-term platform, you can always explore things like TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab. TD Ameritrade is who I personally invest with. I started investing with Scottrade, then TD Ameritrade bought them out, and I've been with them ever since. And I am super happy with them. The wonderful thing about investing as a teenager is that it is a good time to take some healthy risk. Now, I'm not saying to invest all of your money that you have. I'm not saying to invest every single paycheck in its entirety into the market, but I do think it's a really great time to make mistakes in investing because of the fact that you most likely don't have a family, you don't have a mortgage to pay, you don't have children to support, you don't have as many bills as you would if you're an adult. And because of that, it's a good time to lose money. It's a good time to learn some really good lessons and to figure out the game of investing. Because of that, I think that investing as a teenager is one of the absolute best things that you can do. And rather than spending your time going out, partying, or doing any other thing, I think that learning how to invest is one of the best investments that you can make for your future. And the fourth and final tip is to save, not spend your money. Now, this is something that I wish I did more whenever I was a teenager. I had mentioned earlier that I had a bunch of part-time jobs, and a lot of them were pretty decent paying part-time jobs for a teenager. And as a result, I always had more money than I could spend. And because of this, I spent a lot of my money on things I wish I would have never spent it on. Things like drum sets that I never ended up using, or things like a unicycle, which I never learned how to ride. There are so many different examples of stupid purchases that I made as a teenager. And ultimately, if I could go back, I wish I would have had the mindset that I have in present day, and I wish I would have skipped out on some of those frivolous purchases. Ultimately though, you guys, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because of the fact that I do believe that oftentimes teenagers feel as though what they're doing in present day as a teenager isn't going to have a high impact on what they do later on in life. And though I do think to an extent that is true, if you get a bad grade or if you make a mistake, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to follow you forever. But I do know that some of the good habits that you start implementing as a teenager can absolutely have a domino effect on your life in a positive way. And I know for me, in my own personal experience, the habits and the things that I did as a teenager absolutely carried on to me as a 27-year-old adult, and it's absolutely helped me get to where I am today. I think that if it wasn't for the investing habits, if it wasn't for the saving and the work ethic that I instilled in my life as a teenager, I ultimately probably would have been forced to finish college and ended up getting a 9-to-5 job. And the fact that I had an investment account, the fact that I had money socked away, the fact that I had this experience with investing and finances that so many people my age didn't have, allowed for me for the flexibility of eventually dropping out and going an alternative path. Financial literacy and investing is incredibly important, and it really is a shame that this type of thing isn't taught in schools on a more regular basis, if at all. I know that I never learned about investing, credit scores, or how to manage my money in high school, and that really is quite a shame, and I think it's a failure to teenagers all over the world. But with that being said, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it down below, so make sure to leave a comment. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.